I'd like to begin by asking you to close your eyes and think back to a time that you were in love. Think about how your heart raced when you were with that person, or think about how you got butterflies in your stomach just thinking about them. Maybe even think about how it felt if or when that relationship ended. Open your eyes. I asked a classroom full of college-age students to fill out an anonymous survey where I asked them if they had ever been in love. 66% said yes. I asked these same students if they believed that men and women fell in love differently or at different rates, and 80% of them said yes. That 80% is correct. Studies have shown that men and women not only think and act differently, but they fall in love differently as well. Whether it's the character traits desired in a partner or the actual brain process involved in falling in love, you can find differences regardless. So how does someone actually fall in love? And what are the differences between men and women when it comes to falling in love? In a 2011 journal article by Heather Chapman of the University of Rhode Island, I found the answers. So let's assume you're out at a party. You lock eyes with a stranger from across the room, and in this moment, you have found your object of interest or desire. When this happens, a chemical called adrenaline is released. Now, this is a common chemical, and it's actually associated with your fight or flight reaction. And what will happen is your pupils will begin to dilate as they try to take in as much of the image as possible. And your palms will begin to sweat, and your heart will begin to race. I hope this sounds a little familiar. So it's at this time that your amygdala flares up in your brain. So the amygdala is responsible for controlling emotion, and the ignition of this region triggers the release of dopamine, which is your feel-good chemical, as well as oxytocin, which is associated with your bonding. So it's also at this time that your basal nuclei, your thalamus, and your hypothalamus will all flare up as well. These structures all belong to a thing called the limbic system, which is apparently very crucial in falling in love. So let's say that you've met this handsome stranger and you decide to exchange numbers and meet again. Anyways, congratulations, go you. When you see each other again, endorphins will be released again, setting off this whole system once more. I'm sure you guys have all heard of a runner's high. Well, this is actually the same exact phenomenon. You see, endorphins or the release of endorphins are addictive, and they provide these feelings of relief, and it's this compelling euphoric feeling that couples are actually experiencing when they fall in love. As I previously mentioned, I surveyed a class at Capital University with a few questions about love and relationships. One question I asked was how long they thought it took for someone to fall in love. Now, I got a wide variety of answers, anywhere from a few hours to over a year. So I took these answers and I created a class average of about 3 to 4 months, which seems pretty reasonable, but what does science have to say about it? Well, there's no hard numbers since everyone and everyone's brain are so different, but many studies have tried to figure out these answers. In one particular study reported by Psychology Today, they used voles, which is a very popular animal in the science community, seeing that they have monogamous relationships similar to humans, where they mate for life. So in this study, they actually found out that the level of active communication between your medial prefrontal cortex, which is your executive function and decision-making region, and your nucleus accumbens, which is the reward and addiction center of your brain, was actually indicative of the speed of affiliation with your partner. So what this means is that the better the communication between these regions, the faster you're going to feel a connection or attachment to your partner. So, who has the better communication between these regions? Well, there can be a number of answers, and it's all depending on things like mental health, age, hormone levels, and yes, gender. So, this is where it gets interesting. So, there's this one step in a relationship that is usually referred to as the big step and is even called lovemaking. Yep, that's right. We're going there. According to Heather Chapman of the University of Rhode Island, who I previously introduced, after couples experience intercourse, the body fills with dopamine and oxytocin. The presence of oxytocin is what creates the feelings of closeness to one another and even the addiction and connection you feel to the other person. But this oxytocin actually acts differently between men and women. So this is because estrogen is actually, estrogen makes oxytocin receptors more sensitive, whereas testosterone actually weakens these receptors. So if you were to apply it, you would be saying women, since they have higher levels of estrogen, they experience these results of oxytocin more than men do, since men have testosterone levels that are higher than women, which are actually even further elevated during intercourse. So basically, what you conclude is that in terms of falling in love, sex is able to increase and deepen the connection for women, but it's not actually crucial for men when it comes to falling in love. Between these two genders, there are actually many, many differences aside from sex. In 2018, Maria Hackey reported many of these said differences on iHeartIntelligence.com. So to start, men are more visual, whereas women tend to rely on reason. And this means that women tend to fall in love with personality rather than physical affection or attention. So what this means is women can fall in love with a personality and they're attractive, or being attracted to the other person is an added bonus. But men require this initial attraction in order to pursue a relationship at all. Men also tend to fall in love faster than women. This is because evolutionarily women have more reservations when it comes to who they are falling for and who they reproduce with, seeing that they spend a greater chunk of their lives dedicated to creating offspring. Men from this same evolutionary standpoint would have less to lose because they often have more partners. Another fact supported by evolutionary biology is that men are more impulsive, whereas women are more analytical. You see, women tend to think about relationship durability and compatibility more than men. Men tend to just jump right in and not necessarily think about it until after. So maybe it's not that he lied to you and said that he was into you. Maybe he just jumped in too fast. But that's another story. So as we can see, men and women not only act and think differently, but they fall in love differently. The psychological processes and brain functions involved are obviously similar, but it's the ways in which they fall in love that are so statistically different due to evolutionary and biological aspects, as well as chemical and hormonal aspects. So I hope that you can use this information in either current or future relationships, because love is undoubtedly one of the most beautiful, amazing sensations and experiences anyone can have. But don't let your rose-colored glasses fool you, because there's a lot to it, or there's a lot more to it than just emotion. Thanks.